Thanks for tuning in to Look at My JPEG, the podcast that discusses NFT, DeFi, and NFT financialization. This is your host, Xerox Jose, the founder of NFT Perp. The reason why I want to do this podcast is because there's just not enough people talking about NFT financializations. In this podcast, you can expect us to invite guests that are builders, founders, even investors that are deep in the NFT financialization space. We'll discuss their story, what they're building, and how you can get involved. So thanks for tuning in. Welcome to episode 6. This week, we talked to Daniel from Omni X, an omnichain NFT marketplace and platform that is powered by Layer 0 and Stargate Finance. We dove deep into what will make their marketplace so special compared to OpenSea and other marketplaces available. And since their protocol is based around omnichain premise, we also talked about the benefits of having an NFT collection that is moved and held on different blockchain. This is a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the 6th episode of Look at My JPEG. And today we've got an interesting one. It's Omni X, a name that it suggests. It's an Omni NFT protocol. And we have Daniel from the team today with us. Daniel, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, for those that maybe don't understand Omni X as a protocol, maybe give us a very simple explanation, explaining like on 5 of what Omni X is.
Sure. I think before explaining Omni X, it's good to touch on what Layer 0 is and what it provides us with, because this is the plumbing layer that we build on top of. So basically, Layer 0 is a generic cross-chain messaging protocol that allows you to pass any data from one chain to another. And what's really cool about it, it's super flexible and it works with both EVM and non-EVM compatible chains. And so a lot of people use Layer 0 technology for DeFi, but we decided to essentially use it for NFTs. And at its core, OmniX is solving a problem of the fragmentation of liquidity and communities when it comes to NFTs across multiple chains.
Okay, awesome. Right, because as a NFT DeFi project, we get asked this all the time, which sort of NFTs will you guys support on NFT Perp? As we know, most of the NFT volume is happening around ETH Layer 1, and then recently Solana NFTs really kind of blew up as well, and there's some stuff happening on Arbitrum, all these different chains, and NFTs typically don't really move cross-chain as that we're used to with bridging tokens across bridges. So yeah, thank you for that quick introduction. Maybe give us a little intro of maybe yourself first. Tell us a little about your background, how long you've been working on it, OmniX, how this thing came to be.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Daniel. I'm a founder of OmniX. I went to NYU for school. I started building in the space around COVID probably. I used to do Web2 e-commerce stuff, but then I got into Web3. And I started originally in DeFi. My first kind of big project was a mobile wallet that I built for trading synthetic derivatives on chain. And I won a Chainlink hackathon last year with that wallet and was trying to kind of build it into a multi-chain Chrome extension wallet. And that's how I started my search for, cross-chain messaging infrastructure, because I wanted to have all tokens from all chains in the same UI. I wanted to be able to move them in between chains and exchange them. And yeah, that's how I found Layer 0 Labs guys. But once I started playing around with their technology and building on top of their private beta around last November, December, I realized that applying this technology to NFTs is extremely interesting. I can open up a lot of new doors, both for collectors and creators alike.
100%. So give us a little, tease of, from a user standpoint, how could OmniX make someone's life a little easier or better, or do things they weren't able to do?
Definitely. So a few things that people will be able to do in OmniX, and I don't think anyone else supports these kind of things yet, is First, we support omnichain NFT liquidity, which basically means that you can go from owning USDC on Avalanche to owning Azuki on Ethereum in a single transaction. Or, going from BUSD on Binance Smart Chain to a small brain on Arbitrum, again, in a single transaction. And everything happens, on the same platform in the single UI. There's no need to go to like third parties and bridge and do all that kind of stuff. So that's like one thing, basically boosting the discovery and the liquidity for NFTs, because like with us, anyone can buy any NFT from any chain with one of the supported currencies. Another thing is both for creators and collectors, we enable natively omnichain NFTs. And so these NFTs, they still are ERC-7 to 1s, but they have a little more spice to them when it comes to interoperability. And basically what you can do with this piece is you can deploy a single collection, but on multiple chains at the same time. And this way you can reach more people, build your community bigger and faster, and just get more money from your mint, essentially, by kind of diversifying where you're minting your NFT.
Oh, there's quite a bit to unpack there. Love to touch on the first function you talked about in terms of liquidity. You mentioned someone can have USDC or whatever the asset is on, let's say, Arbitrum or Avalanche. They can use that money to purchase an NFT on, let's say, Binance Smart Chain or on Ethereum Layer 1. Is that true? So it's like, instead of having to bridge their USDC, change it to Ethereum, and then bridge it to Layer 1 to purchase an NFT they want, they can just spend money on a chain that they have that capital and get their NFT that they want on the different chain.
Yeah, that's totally correct. So we enable that, and there's also like a lot of flexibility that comes with this approach. Like what you described right now, this process is kind of like, we think that this is the best default UX when the seller of an NFT gets money on the chain where he or she are selling this NFT. But you can also do stuff where like you transfer a person USDC on Avalanche, and then you get an NFT from them on Ethereum, right? So the payment doesn't even have to go cross chain. But
Right.
I think that
That's quite interesting. Okay. And then the second question that I have, actually the three-part question. So with this first one, if someone were to use this asset, like their money, to spend to a seller on, let's say, Avalanche, and then they receive the NFTs on Ethereum, where is this transaction, like, of how is this NFT being settled? Like, is this like on a marketplace where they can take a listing and pay them on, on a different chain? And where is this marketplace? Is it OpenSea? Is it Lookshare? Like, do you guys have your own marketplace for that? And does your technology work with existing marketplaces as well?
Right. So we are not an aggregator. We don't plug into like OpenSea API or Luxor API and get their order book. We have our own order book. So essentially, yes, we are a marketplace, and like you can list your NFTs on our platform and then accept bids for those NFTs, from any chain that we currently support.
Got it. So basically as a seller is like, you're not limiting yourself down to liquidity on a specific chain. Anyone on any chain can buy this NFT via your protocol.
Exactly. And like a lot of people, you also mentioned that like most of the NFT volume is on Ethereum, and that's completely correct. But the thing is that I think this market of like people on alternative L1s and then alt L2s that want to get into Ethereum NFTs is pretty large, but there's just too much friction for them to do so. And I think on the other hand, vice versa, it works the same way, where like you have people on Ethereum with a little with money, whether it comes from DeFi or from NFTs or whatever, and they see this really cool and new emerging ecosystems and communities on other chains, and they want to get exposure to them, but it's just too inconvenient to bridge, or or they don't even know that these communities exist because they just live in the Ethereum bubble. And so we're trying to kind of like break the stigma and open up the, the seamless transfer of value essentially between chains, that would work both ways.
Yeah, there's definitely friction. Like I personally, I've been using OpenSea for a while. I've obviously used Gem as well. I've dabbled with Solana NFTs. I think like around last year on Magic Eden. But the process of trying to get your funds from Ethereum to Solana is always a little bit, it takes some time, right? Even though the wormhole bridge, like there's a lot of bridges available, but it still is an effort to get your money over, and trying to operate in that environment is a little bit different. So I definitely see the pros of making this a more seamless process. The third question I have was what you talked about, the idea of omni-chain NFT. Can you expand a little bit more on that? Like in the case of how a collection, let's say of 10K different NFTs, do they just have like a copy of an NFT on represent itself on different chains? Is it sort of like, is there any sort of like bridging anything involved, or is just this NFT is just representing itself on? Is it a 5 different copies on 5 different chains? How does that work?
Right. So essentially, the way it works is that you have this ONFT interface that Layer Zero made, and I think it has been audited as well. And essentially, what happens, you deploy the same smart contract, usually it's the same smart contract, on whatever chains you want it to be. Usually it's all 7 chains. For now, they're just all EVM compatible, but I think we should be adding Aptos, Sway, and Solana later this year. And you deploy this contract on any numbers of chains that you want, and then you connect them all together. There's like a set trusted remote task that basically connects 2 smart contracts on 2 chains together and tells them, to communicate with each other. And then the way it works with bridging is with omnichain NFTs, we don't need to really like bridge them. There's no wrapping or no synthetic assets involved. The only thing that happens is that when you want to move your NFT from one chain to another, we burn it on the source chain. We take data about it, which is usually just the token ID and the address of the owner, but it also could be any data. It could be on-chain metadata. It could be some other parameters. And then we pass it on to a destination chain via Layer Zero, and then we mint it back into the existence. So it's a burn mint mechanism versus like wrap unwrap mechanism for natively omnichain NFTs.
Interesting. Okay, so what you're saying is this omni-chain NFT, this Omni NFT exists on one chain at a time, and when it moves to a different chain, it will be burned and then minted on the other in that transaction. So therefore, representing itself to be on, when it can be on different chains.
Yep. Yep, that's totally correct. And the way collections are usually set up is you take, let's say, like you have 10K supply, and usually you have to determine before you deploy, you have to figure out how many pieces do you want to allocate to each chain. So, for example, we're still minting our Genesis NFT collection, ONFT collection. I'm going to share it right here. And essentially what we did, we like polled our community and we tried to figure out like what are the chains that people like the most. And we got like a lot of results in, but for the most part, people were interested in Ethereum, in Arbitrum, and in Binance Smart Chain. So we allocated like the most supply to essentially alternative L1s and Arbitrum because people wanted to mint more on those chains. But then like chains like Optimism and Phantom were not popular at all. So we allocated only like a very little bit of supply to those chains. So it's kind of like up to you as a creator how hard you want to go on each chain. Like you can still, the thing is that it's so flexible that you can still mint your entire collection on a single chain. So for example, like imagine a gaming project that wants to go live on an Avalanche subnet or like on Arbitrum Nova, but they want to be on OpenSea. They want to be, they want to have a broader kind of community exposure to a broader community. So what they can do through us, they can mint their entire collection on Polygon, get listed on OpenSea, get access to Polygon Studios network and ecosystem, but then they can move these pieces over to, Avalanche Subnet or Arbitrum and actually use those pieces in the game on those chains. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds with this setup.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So tell us a little bit more about the standard of moving these Omni NFTs around. Like, can current NFT collections that are popular, like BAYC, Punks, all these different, probably older standard NFTs, adopt what you're currently doing, or do they have to change contracts? How does that work?
Right. So with existing NFTs, it is a little bit tricky. I think there are two main ways of doing, omni-chain transfers with regular NFTs. First way is a little messy. Essentially, you have to airdrop an entirely new collection to the holders of the old collection. I think this is what Kanpai Pandas did. Like, they first minted 2,000 pieces on Ethereum, and then they found out about layer zero omnichain NFTs, all this stuff, and they were like, okay, let's relaunch 10,000 pieces now and like on 7 different chains. And essentially they ended up just airdropping omnichain NFTs to the holders of original regular NFTs. So that's one way of doing it, but it only really works if you're like super committed to going omnichain and you already launched non-omnichain. And it's pretty like a case by case process, right? Like, you have to figure out how to airdrop these tokens, what kind of parameters is the original smart contract using, and stuff like that. But another way of doing it, and I'm going to share the demo right here as well, is we built a bridge that essentially allows you to wrap any NFT or a ERC1155 semi-fungible token into a omni-chain NFT on another chain. And so this bridge, unfortunately, it has to be custodial. We have to take, like, the smart contract has to take custody of the original NFT, but essentially it gets locked in the bridge smart contract, and then you mint a wrapped omni-chain equivalent with the same metadata, same name, everything the same, but just on another chain.
That's very interesting. So that's the idea of like how a lot of the current bridges work. Anyway, like a lot of tokens are actually under custody for these relayers and bridges as well. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a very interesting mechanism that I'm sure a lot of projects out there or users are dying to use. I feel like in the case of NFT finance, I always think about as a protocol building on Arbitrum, what if we can get users to bridge their NFTs from layer 1 to layer 2 and allowing, collaterals and stuff being, worked on with what NFTs on layer 2. So I'm always kind of fascinated about how these technologies work. Cool. So, I mean, like, we went through some of your website and documentations, and there's a little bit more about the marketplace you guys are building. There's a launch pad you guys are working on. Tell us a little bit about the marketplace you guys are working on, and maybe some stuff that you want to share with us. That's quite exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the marketplace is going to be quite similar, I think, in its fashion to LooksRare in a way. Like, we have a very similar architecture to them. It's just omni-chain. So the main point of this marketplace is to facilitate the transactions and facilitate the discovery process for people from multiple chains, and make sure that Ethereum people can now ape into collections on Arbitrum and on alternative L1s, and then, as I said before, like vice versa, people from alternative L1s and L2s can rotate into blue chip NFTs on Ethereum in like a single click. So we're going to launch, I think, in a semi-curated fashion. And so what that means is that you'll be able to see all your NFTs from all supported chains on your home screen, and you can bridge all of them, but only whitelisted collections will be available for trading. So I think the reason we do this is because we want to, well, first of all, we want to flush out, our core features on a limited number of collections just to make sure that they work properly. But even more so, being semi-curated gives you a little more leverage when it comes to building relationships with the projects and creators. And we're looking forward to working with a few really, really good and cool people on Arbitrum especially, and help onboard them to the marketplace. And when it comes to Launchpad, so initially we wanted to do it in a manifold.xyz fashion. So it would be a non-shared, like a smart contract that anyone can use, with a no-code tool essentially. But that ended up being really tricky, not even because of the smart contracts, but because of their deployment and setup. Like automating omnichain smart contracts is a little bit hard right now, and we talked to Chainlink about it because like we need keepers, like a keeper network to properly run those like deploy and set trusted remote tasks. But this kind of infrastructure is not ready yet. So we decided to take like a simpler approach, and our launchpad is going to be just like um, you can apply, or we'll reach out to you if you're really cool creator or brand or a project, and then we'll just help you, manually go through this process of deploying an ONFT and like getting listed and getting a minting page on top of our platform. And the reason for that is because we did automate the ONFT deployment process, but just not to like 100% extent. Just for you guys to understand, like if you try to deploy a ONFT collection from scratch, and like you want to use a open source layer zero code for that, you'll have to run 49 hard hat tasks manually to do so, right? Because you need to deploy 7 smart contracts, so that's 7 tasks, and then you need to run set trusted remote to connect them all together, right? So that's 6 tasks per each smart contract, which adds up being a lot. And it used to take me like 30 minutes to set up a single ONFT collection. But what we ended up doing, we made a few scripts that kind of automate that process. So now, like, you just need to run one task for deploying your NFT on all chains, and then one task for connecting all of them together on all chains. So yeah, that's how our launchpad is going to look like, and hopefully that gives a better understanding of the platform itself.
Awesome. So when are you guys hoping to launch on testnet if there's one, and when are you guys hoping to launch on mainnet?
Yeah, so testnet should be coming in next week. We're almost done with it, but I'm sure like you always have some kind of problems, new problems popping up, new bugs, and then new kind of like feature requests coming in. So for example, like right now, we actually can't support Arbitrum and Optimism on our platform because it's like you're building on top of so many different things, and all of them have to align together for you to work. So right now we're waiting for layer 0 to migrate to Gorley testnets on Arbitrum and Optimism so we can support them, because there's not a single like NFT API provider that supports Arbitrum Rinkeby or Optimism Kovan testnets. So yeah, we hope to go live with testnet next week, probably around Wednesday, but it might take a little longer depending on like, if we want to roll out L2s before the launch or after the launch, or there's a couple more similar kind of situations that we have that, it would be really nice to have on the testnet launch, but we might have to go without it.
Yeah, as a tech startup founder, I can understand most things don't ship on time, and what can go wrong always go wrong. So totally understand. Outside of that, tell us a little bit about the Greg NFTs, ONFTs. You guys named it. What are Gregs, and why are they called Greg?
Yeah, so Greg is kind of a meme. So basically what happened back in March, in late March, I made this like demo. I built a very simple ONFT smart contract, and I built a little website, and essentially I put together the very first demo of a ONFT in the wild. Like I showcased how you mint it on Binance Smart Chain, and then you move it over to Avalanche, and then you can move it over back. And the Greg was just like a random name that was kind of memey and it was kind of simple. So I wanted to like educate people a little bit, and so I thought it would be like a funny way to do so. And then the visual kind of aesthetic for it came kind of from the history of this project, because essentially even before we started working on this platform, we wanted like originally we wanted to build a game. It was called Omniverse and was like supposed to be a blockchain strategy game where multiple blockchains represent multiple factions, and like you would be able to compete and steal resources and stable coins from people from other chains. So it was kind of like an opposite of Omni X in the sense that Omni X puts everyone together, but Omniverse would put everyone against each other. And we wanted to do that initially, and we did like a little bit of world building and like lore creating and like concept art creating. And so this is where like the visual part of the visual kind of came in. It was very like space themed. It was like a little alien themed kind of environment, but eventually we ended up realizing like you can't work on two things at the same time. Like we needed the platform for the game in the first place, but then we realized that there's much more potential in empowering other creators to make their work omni-chain, whether it's games or 101 or PFPs or music NFTs, doesn't really matter. But we decided to focus more on the platform slash infrastructure layer instead. So yeah, that's the history of Grags. The utility and the idea behind them is that it kind of acts as a premium membership to our entire ecosystem. So if and I mean we will be releasing another PFP NFT collection, I think early next month, and then any kind of like NFTs tokens that we release, obviously grad holders will get premium and early access to those assets, but also the main idea behind the NFT is that it will give premium access to the platform. So basically some of the features on the platform are going to be like gate kept, and the only way to unlock them is to have a greg or satisfy another on-chain requirement. We already built this in, and you guys see it on the testnet, but essentially we also, because we are powered by Stargate and we love Stargate, we also enabled like a similar experience for people with a vested Stargate balance right now. And it's essentially, for us, it's a prototype of this premium feature, and it's a way for us to figure out like how are we going to enable people to access this like advanced analytics or private transactions or like very special launchpad releases only if they hold this NFT or they have a big like vested Stargate balance, essentially.
Very interesting. Now, thank you for expanding on the NFT collections you guys have. Over at NFT Perp, we're also considering launching an NFT collection as well that have DeFi mechanics, built in there. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit on Omni X. Maybe tell us a little bit more about like what to expect next. Do you guys have any partnerships that's happening? How do we follow you guys? What's the next, things we can expect, and how do we participate as a community?
Yeah, for sure. So testnet should be coming out next week, maybe like next weekend max. And we're gonna like we're gonna put out some kind of announcement for it, but essentially like it will be an incentivized testnet. So if you participate in it and you like do a trade or like you bridge a regular testnet NFT through our bridge, basically if you interact with our smart contract, like we will be rewarding these people with with our tokens later on. So that's probably the best way in like short term. Just once we release the testnet, check it out, let us know what you think, like report bugs, like leave feature requests. That would be really good for us. Aside from that, in terms of partnerships, the last one we did was with Pinata. We hosted them on Twitter Space as well last week. It was really cool. I love their team. We'll be using Pinata to upload metadata essentially for our launchpad and provide creatives with a reliable metadata solution. And then we're also going to have right after the testnet goes live. I guess that's a little bit of alpha for you guys, but essentially we integrated Chainlink price feeds as well, so that we will be doing co-marketing with Chainlink after testnet goes live. So yeah.
What kind of price fees do you need from Chainlink?
So we essentially what we did, like we really wanted Chainlink for their keepers for automating like deployment of on-chain smart contracts and also for VRF, so we can host like fair NFT drops on the supported chains. But keepers are not ready, and VRF, like we're not ready to fully dive into it and like figure out how to plug it in an automated manner. So what we did, we just integrated a few essentially price feeds for native tokens on all of our supported chains. So it's like ETH, Matic, Phantom, AVAX, and then BNB. And then we also integrated Chainlink feeds for gas, for tracking gas on those networks as well. And essentially what we do, we just display this information kind of like in a trading terminal fashion on the user screen. So it's like a really simple integration, but as we start supporting more currencies, it will become more important because then we can get real time price data and we can price all NFTs in USD, both retroactively and proactively. So that's going to be kind of like a next step of this integration, and then we'll see how we can use hopefully Keepers V2. Hopefully we'll get like early access to them, and so that would be interesting to see how we can use essentially off-chain triggers with on-chain execution for ONFT smart contract.
Yeah, gotcha. Very interesting. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to walk us over the technologies and things that you're building over at Omni X. Really appreciate your time. I guess before we leave, if you have any last words for the listeners of Live Twitter Space and podcasts, do let us know.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me, guys. It was a great discussion. I think there's a ton of ways like NFTFi could utilize layer 0 and omnichain technology as well. Like one of the use cases that I'm super interested in is omnichain lending and borrowing. So you could put down collateral, NFT as a collateral on one chain and then take out a loan on another chain. I think that's really cool as well because that would kind of empower a lot of NFTs on Ethereum to become essentially capital enabling assets on other chains. So yeah, let's definitely keep in touch, and I'm excited for you guys to check out your testnet. I think it looks great, so super excited to see how we can collaborate further in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for your time, Daniel. It's been a exciting conversation with you, and thank you for the listener for tuning in to the 6th episode of Look at My JPEG. We'll see you guys again next week. Have a good one.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
NFT and follow NFT Perp. And yeah, guys, have a good one.
Cheers. Thank you for tuning in to Look at My JPEG podcast. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your audio podcast from, give us a like, a subscribe if you like the content, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.